I've had an amazing career, a career that a lot of people would happily exchange for what's happening in their existence. And I also feel like sometimes I look at it and I'm like, okay, I did that. I did the acting thing. What else is going on?
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Michael Shannon is an actor. He sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work.
Do you have a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process when you get a new character? And has that changed since you started, and how has that changed?
Well, I'm kind of a simpleton in that regard. I just read the script. I feel like if the script is worth a darn, most of what you need to know is in there. The writing is paramount to me, and it's my job to support the writing and to disappear into the writing so that there's a direct communication between the writer and the audience. I'd say it breaks down two different ways, really, depending on whether what I'm doing is entirely fictional or if I'm playing a person that actually roamed the earth. If I'm playing a real person, again, it's pretty straightforward. I just try and find out as much about them as I can. So I just finished playing two real people this year. Justice Robert Jackson, who was responsible for the Nuremberg trials, and then President James Garfield. So I just do a lot of research. I read everything I can read, and then I go to the scripts. I guess people might be surprised to see my scripts. They don't have a lot of writing on them or notes, or I'm not one of those people. A lot of what I do just kind of exists in my mind. And yeah, I've read the Stanislavski books and all that, but nothing's really stuck. I don't have a system really. It's a lot of it's instinct and impulse and subconscious.
Well, you certainly shouldn't fuck with it. How do you not let, though, if you're doing a lot of research and you're doing a lot of thinking, but you're not doing a lot of writing on the page, but how do you not let that overwhelm you?
Well, I think that people that get overwhelmed by this work, the main source of that is a kind of relentless self-obsession, or being obsessed with your own performance or yourself. So the way for me to avoid that is to think about the people I'm working with and the thing that we're creating together, because it really is a group effort. And to avoid that kind of myopia and I'm very reluctant to talk about things in terms of, oh, that was good or that was bad, because that doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know what that means. You're either alive or you're dead. So just be alive. You do the preparation, you do the research, so that it's in your cerebral cortex, but it's not like you show up and think about research or a book you read. You show up to be present. Like, that's your job, is to be present and to be sharing with other people.
Mm-hmm. It feels like this is a strange paradox, because you almost have to puff yourself up in a way to kind of survive this? Because you're a product, like the commodity is you and your body, but yet what you're saying makes so much sense that the way to actually do it better is to focus not on yourself, on the others. Mm-hmm. And that feels like a weird paradox, right? But even as I'm saying that, I know that there's a truth there. Like, you draw attention from the audience because you're actually not drawing attention to yourself, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, it's like you disappear. It's your job to disappear, and all, I think a lot of people would agree that the acting that's most appealing to watch is the acting you don't notice.
Yeah.
And that's why so often there are people that are unknowns, or it's their first time and they're in a movie and they're just a regular person, but look, they're so captivating. And it's like, well, yeah, because they're just being a person. That's ultimately what we're captivated by is just other people. I mean, whether you're watching a movie or you're on the subway, you're just looking around like, oh, look at all these other people. So the trick with making a career out of acting is you have to keep doing that like over and over and over again. So at a certain point, you're like, how many different people can I be? But I've always found a lot of peace actually in pretending to be other people, because it means for that brief period of time, I'm not me.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about my own garbage.
Yeah. When you have had difficulty, and I'm assuming just like anybody who does work of any kind, mm-hmm. there's a difficulty. What is the nature of the difficulty? Do you know what I mean? And I'm imagining that somebody that approaches it the way you do, one of the difficulties might be when your partner that you're working with is actually that kind of person that is not kind of focusing on you so much and mm-hmm. focusing on themselves. And that's an example of a difficulty. But how do you get out of the difficulty, or how have you, and has that changed?
Well, I'd say recently, sometimes you kind of beat things to death and they stop feeling alive. You like overshoot something, too many takes. You start to feel static, or like you're just repeating something over and over again. Like, I wouldn't do well with someone who wants to do, 70 takes or whatever. It's interesting because it's changed. When I was younger, I liked doing lots of takes, and the longer I've been doing it, I'm starting to realize that it's changing. That I actually don't want to do it over and over again. I'm not sure why or when that started, but it's changed. Like, I actually want to be pretty economical about it. But sometimes, anyway, you find yourself in a situation where it feels like the wheels have gotten stripped a little bit, and you've lost your tread, and you just feel like you're making noises with your mouth, and you're not really sure what's happening. So usually what I do in that situation is pretty basic. Is I just kind of slap myself on the cheek and say, why am I in this room? Why am I talking to this person? And what do I hope is going to happen? It's just it's rudimentary stuff. It's the same stuff, frankly, that a lot of us ask in our day-to-day lives. It's not that different.
Yeah. Has what you need from a director changed?
Well, like I said earlier, I don't get much out of qualitative adjectives. I don't want a pep talk or anything like that. But I will ask, I'm like, well, what did you see? Like, if they say, oh, that was good, I like that one. I'm like, okay, why? Why did you like, what happened? Tell me the story of what just happened in that take. Mm-hmm. And if the director can answer that question, then I trust them. And if they can't, then I'm like, oh, you don't really know what you're doing. Because for me, from my own experience directing, that's your job. You should be able to. There's a real misconception about directing. I think a lot of people think that it's about like imposing a vision on other people and trying to get them to conform to it. But when I direct, because I've also directed a couple of plays, you definitely are speaking to your vision by who you surround yourself with. But once you've got them there, you're, I think, a lot better off letting them follow their muses, and giving them the benefit of an outside eye to bounce things off of. And in the midst of those conversations, a lot of times you can insert thoughts or feelings you've had about it, or maybe a version that you would just like to examine and see if it's if it fits into what you're doing or not. But that's what I look for in a director. I don't respond well to authoritarian directors, and I don't respond well to vague directors. Because to me, it's the more specific things are, the more you're offering the audience. Like otherwise, nobody needs to sit around and watch a bunch of generalities. Like that's not to anybody's advantage.
Yes. I actually think, tell me if you respond to this, I'm starting to think like a director should actually avoid not only just saying something's wrong, but actually avoid saying something is good. Because if the people are operating in this binary of daddy saying it's good or bad, like this is a weird place to constantly be in, like wondering, did I hit good? Did I hit good? Did I hit good? If you don't know, and you're just operating and he's letting you go, does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. Although I do think for everybody's benefit, it's nice to walk away from a scene saying like, with the reassurance that it's been properly and fully explored.
Yeah.
You don't want people walking off the set saying, I don't know what just happened. I don't know. When I direct, I definitely give an indication of like, because I for me, the paramount thing when I'm directing is I want my actors to feel safe and taken care of. I don't think anybody does work, at least work that I'm interested in, when they're frightened and feeling alone. So I feel like it's my job. It's not like I want them to feel like I'm not fond of them, because I am. I'm very fond of them. It's just a matter to try and keep the dialogue in a spirit of exploration as opposed to, accomplishment.
Yes. That's it. That's a good way to put it. When you think of somebody that you were in a scene with, who you enjoyed your time the most, what are the qualities that they had?
Present, curious, spontaneous, loving, kind. You can be very loving and kind with your scene partner even if you're in an adversarial relationship. And so that loving kindness isn't about like, smiling at people. It's just about embracing the partnership of what you're doing. And that is always, I had an acting teacher once, she said, every time you're on stage or acting with somebody, you're engaging in a love relationship.
Yeah.
That's what the transference of energy and sharing that experience is. That's what that is. And at the time when I was receiving that information, it didn't entirely make sense to me. But the longer I do it, the more I can see that she was right when she was when she was saying that. Because you really, and it's not love, it's not like romantic love or even necessarily familial love, but it is a love based on sharing an experience as deeply as you possibly can with another person.
When you jump from plays to movies and back again, can you describe, like, is there something that, particularly the stage, that the enrichment of the stage experience for you as an actor that you then carry back into the film, or vice versa, or anything that works that way? Can you describe that?
I mean, the strange thing about it is they're very different and they're also identical. And I know that doesn't make any sense when I say it, but like, they're very different. I think the main difference is the structure of them, like the routine of them, like literally the way that time is spent. Like when you're doing a play, you wake up in the morning and you think, oh, I got to do this play tonight. And so you kind of move through your day preparing for that experience, making sure you don't expend too much energy, or making sure that when you get to the theater that night, you have to be at your peak, the peak of your awakeness, your consciousness, whatever, so that you can go out and be as present as possible with as much energy as you can muster. And then it ends, and then you can screw off and do whatever. But it's a very contained experience, and then with filming is so different. It's you show up, God knows how early in the morning, and you sit around, and you keep getting these very brief periods of like activity, really intense, pressure-filled activity. It's like starting a car and then turning it off, and then starting it and turning it off, and starting it. And like if you were doing that in your garage, people would think you were losing your mind. But that's what you're doing to an actor all day long when they're on a set. And that's a very different feeling, experience, and requires a different kind of stamina. But the actual work of the acting itself isn't that different. In my experience, I mean, most of the time when I'm doing a play, it's in a fairly intimate space. Like this notion of going from like acting in the Coliseum to like going on macro and micro. It's not as extreme as that, really. It's because you can see bullshit on stage pretty much as easily as you can see it in a film. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I can anyway.
Yeah. This analogy of the car turning on, when a lot of those, let me continue the analogy, when a lot of the cars are these particular characters that are dark, have you had to deal with any psychological effects of this on and off stuff for these kind of people, and how have you?
I don't know. I never blame any psychological issues I'm having on my work. I feel like my work is actually a salvation of sorts. It's a miracle. I feel like it's if it weren't for the work, I could be like a homeless person or something. I got very lucky to find this work, and I'm always grateful to be doing it. And conversely, I always say, okay, this is my last job. I'm retiring. So I can be kind of contradictory in that regard, I guess. But yeah, I find that life, frankly, is much more psychologically rigorous, dangerous than acting is.
Yeah, when you sat down with Corrigan a couple of weeks ago I wasn't there, but I saw a clip, and you said, if I don't act again, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it is like I say, it's a silly thing. I honestly believe that both things are true. I believe that I feel very fortunate I've had an amazing career, a career that a lot of people would happily exchange for what's happening in their existence. And I also feel like sometimes I look at it and I'm like, okay, I did that. I did the acting thing. What else is going on? Now, having said that, I'll probably act till the day I die because, it's what I do. But I haven't completely blocked out the possibility that I might, I don't know, make some sort of change in my life. And I hear it from other people too that have been doing it a long time. It's not uncommon because there are some aspects of what we do that are not always so much fun, and but they don't tend to have anything to do with the actual acting part. Mm-hmm. They tend to be more about like I said, the rigors of the lifestyle and the demands of, For example, I spent 6 months away from home this year, and I have 2 kids, and I was in a beautiful city, and I was working on projects that I was very pleased to be working on, and yet I was also very lonely and prone to melancholy, and so it's more things of that nature that start to wear on you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said before you were talking about playing 2 different people recently that were based on a real person. But I think it's interesting that the end was kind of born out of Oppenheimer kind of meeting this family. Mm-hmm. And so even though it's not, I mean, your character is unnamed or it's just the father. Mm-hmm. But did you want to know who this person was that he...
No, I didn't do that kind of deep dive. And, there's an argument to be made that perhaps I should have. Like I should have gone and hung out with Rex Tillerson for a month or something. I don't know. But for me, the story is... Fairy tale isn't the right word, but it's a fantasia. It's not like... There was nobody specific I wanted to be emulating. It was just more like a construct of a human being that there's several people in the world like Father. That's why he doesn't have a name. There's fathers all over the place. Fathers are what is, doing us in. So, and I felt like over my years of frustration with fathers, that I had enough ammo to go to battle with, and so I didn't model him after anybody. He's a manifestation of my subconscious, and that's it.
What happens nowadays? Like, I'm sure people send you a lot of scripts, and like when something interesting like this comes along somehow, what are your deciding factors? Like, this is a musical. Mm-hmm. Was that something that made you be like, yes, the challenge of that? This is someone who's never directed a fiction feature. Mm-hmm. Was that exciting? Or are these things actual reasons to say yes?
Yeah, it's not really a criteria thing. I mean, this film could have not had any music in it, and I think I would have still probably gone for it. The music was a bonus, really. I don't have a list of things I'm trying to accomplish, really. Like, oh, I want to show everybody this or that, or I want to prove I can do this or that. Like, it's just really just, I just thought it was important. It seemed important. It seemed like when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, people should see this movie, and this guy thinks that I should do this, and I don't see any reason not to. But it's kind of surprising. I feel a little bit like the Wizard in the Wizard of Oz, because when you see behind the curtain, there's not all that much going on. I'm just reading scripts and being like, I mean, it's a miracle that when I even get to the end of a script, because I've gotten to the point where I find them hard to read, which is strange, because they're, 25 years ago, if somebody sent me a screenplay, I'd be jumping up and down like I just won the lottery. But now I'm like,
because they suck, or because
there's I don't say they suck, but there's I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's so much content in the world right now, and it's like, I think a lot of stuff gets made that we could probably live without, and so a lot of times when I read something, I'm like, no, I don't think anybody needs to see this. I feel like I've seen this before.
Not saying anything.
Why bother? But every once in a while you pick something up, you're like, oh wow, I don't know. This seemed kind of different. Like I said, the music was a bonus. I thought Josh, I hadn't seen the documentaries when I agreed to do the job. I only saw them after the fact, honestly. But I met Josh and I talked to him. A lot of times the turn on is just the people. Like, you meet the person and you're like, oh, I like you. I like the way you talk. I like the way you think. You seem like a kind person, and you seem like you're concerned about the world. And so, yes, I'll go with you.
One of the things I was thinking about when watching it was strictly like a real technical thing. I was like, wow, there's a lot of marks the actors had to hit.
Yes, the blocking was relentless blocking.
And what did you? I mean, I guess every film has a certain amount of that, but when it's relentless blocking, like, what do you? Is that like challenging and cool, or is it?
I don't think it was anybody's favorite part of it. I'll be frank, but when you got a DP like Mikhail, it's and Josh also has great compositional abilities. You trust them. You trust if they say it's really better if you actually hit that mark and you're not like an inch away from it. You're like, oh, okay, that's really freaking irritating, but I believe you. Yes. But it does oftentimes require doing a couple, 3 more takes than you'd like to do.
I'm going to make a huge assumption here, so I'm going to say this in a very assuming way. You could, I don't think you can tell me I'm wrong, but I could I'll probably see it on your face. Isn't George Mackay amazing?
Oh, he's amazing.
All right, I believe you.
No, I told him, I said, George, you are the son of this movie, not the S-O-N, you are the S-U-N of this movie. You give this movie life. Like, you are, in all my years of doing this stuff, I really do love him. I love him. I wouldn't go so far to say as I feel like I'm his father, but I adore George. I think he's one of the bravest, most committed, most talented young actors that there is. He's not even that young anymore, but he's younger than me, I guess. But
he's a nice guy too.
Yeah, he's got just this beautiful spirit. He's such a beautiful spirit. I really actually look up to him because he's very unflappable. When some of us older sorts were getting frustrated, he never did. He just energy for days. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting. It was an interesting time for him when we were making the movie because he was about to have his second kid, and he was, again, when I was talking earlier, he was away from his partner and she was pregnant, and there were things going on, and he had other stresses in his life that he was dealing with, but he always showed up to work and just gave 1,000% everything he had, and then was smiling afterwards. So yeah, I can't say enough about George. I think he deserves a big statue.
Speaking of trust, like especially in a movie like this, you actors need to trust the director, because I was just imagining, like, I feel like it really works, but I was imagining, like, on the day when you're like doing these long takes, singing this song, I'm like, man, this could have been something where you easily don't trust, but it feels like no matter what, an actor has to trust, right? I mean, because the other road of not trust just leads to a dead end. Have you found yourself in situations where it's hard to trust and you just have to, or what do you do?
Well, it's just a pecking order, really. I mean, film is a director's medium, so it's on you. I mean, once you say yes, you've said yes. So that's why you really got to size people up before you shake their hands. But the film, it's the only way it works is if the director is the eye of the pyramid, really. I mean, I've learned to be very zen about it. I don't. There's so much that happens after we're done shooting, and yeah, things get muddled and screwed up all the time. And then the editing process. I've seen things cut in the most baffling, unusual ways. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's much more on them than it is on me. And I know everyone say, but it's your face they're looking at. But I've learned that it's like, and maybe maybe this is a privilege on my part, because for whatever reason, I seem to have accrued enough credits that people keep calling me, regardless of the outcome of whatever the latest project is that I've done. Because for every movie that I've made that people are like, oh, that movie, I love that movie, I've made 5 of them that you probably never even freaking heard of, so that nobody saw. And I've just grown to accept that that's probably the way it is for most people in the business. Nobody's batting 1,000. But it's really, you can't, once you've said yes to a director, you have to keep saying yes, basically. Now that doesn't mean you can't, push back sometimes. You're like, I really, I've been in situations with really established directors, and I'm not going to name names, but situations where I've been like, I think I might be more right than you are about this. And I'm not afraid to do that, but I also know that, and particularly now that I've directed a film, it's like long after the actors are gone, the director's still sitting there trying to reckon with this beast that they brought into the world. And I respect that. It's like I wrap and I split, and you're left with the cleanup, and you can always direct your own movie if you don't, if you think other directors don't know what they're talking about or whatever. Yeah. Do it yourself. See if you can have more luck at it.
Yeah. Something strange happened to me in the Bike Riders. Your scene where your character has this little monologue.
Mm-hmm.
I had this. I got emotional, and I was thinking about my friend who died. He of alcohol poisoning, and he's just a destitute. I tried to help him many times, but anyway, that felt like I don't remember ever having that. Suddenly, it's like I was confronted. I don't know if are you mystical in any way? Like, do you think like there was an opening there? I know this is kind of woo-woo, but like, if you are empty of yourself, then
something will show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, in theory, I agree with that, which I also understand is very confusing to hear. It's like, well, how does that work? Like, you're just not supposed to think or about anything, and then something will magically show up. And I admit, when you say it out loud in English, it doesn't make much sense, but it really is kind of, it's the mystery of the work. Yeah. But again, I preface that by saying you can only do that if you've done your preparation. The degree to which your performance will be worth a shit to anybody is proportionate to the degree of preparation that you do. Like, to me, that's irrefutable. It's like, you can't just show up and look at the sides and be like, what am I saying here? Like, you spend time, like in that instance, again, I was playing a real person, and Jeff Nichols, the director, had interviews with the person that I could listen to. So I listened to friggin' interviews, and I listened to them a lot. And then I looked at the picture book, and then just anything I could get my hands on, because it was a very foreign. I'm not that guy much. I don't like motorcycles. I could give a fuck. I'm not from, I'm not a Latvian Chicagoan, Yeah. Although I do have a friend in Chicago who's Latvian, and it was funny. I never thought I would play a Latvian, but I thought of him when I was doing it. But but so you consume all of that, and then you just trust that it's situated itself not your conscious mind, but in your subconscious, and that it just will come out. Yeah.
You've often said that you're not a careerist. You don't have like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, or something like that. Having a family, though, it feels like, and a strong career. Like, do you start to look at the next half of this life and just be like, maybe I should try and land this on the landing pad? I don't even know what that means.
Well, yeah, look, I know a lot of the opinions I hold, a lot of the things I say are from a very, as I mentioned earlier, privileged perspective. I don't have to hustle, really. People they come to me, they say, would you do this? Would you do that? I'm not in like the super upper high echelon. I mean, and probably a lot of that is because I haven't pursued it so much, but I'm not like a superstar or anything. I'm just an actor, but I'm totally willing to acknowledge things that, like, the reason I don't have a 5-year plan is because I don't seem to need a 5-year plan. And there are people in different situations that are trying to figure out how to survive and flourish and for whatever reason, I somehow managed to avoid that, being in that position. A lot of it was just timing and the rhythm of my life. I didn't have a family until later in life, and by the time I started having kids, I established myself well enough that I didn't have to worry. But that could all change. This business is very fickle, and I could be yesterday's news at any moment, and then I could be furiously scribbling a 5-year plan in my notebook. Who knows? I don't know. But I guess what I mean when I say the planning thing is like, so much of what I do, my discipline is about the present. It's about the present. Like, that's my job. It's literally my job to live in the present. It should be all of our jobs, but it's definitely my job and an actor's job to do that. So I guess that's why I'm reluctant to plan ahead. I also, having said that, do wind up usually with things like, I know what I'm doing next summer. I'm doing this play in London. Just because people, producers and projects and all that, they're planning ahead. So they say, hey, do you want to do this movie 2 years from now? And I'm like, okay, sure. I'll do this movie 2 years from now. But I'm not interested in, like, producing just seems like a pain in the ass. I don't want to do that, or start like my own company, or have my, I don't really want to do that. But I don't mean to downplay that. A lot of that, you know, what you're asking me about can be significant and important in the context of somebody's life. You know, it just doesn't seem to be that relevant in mine for whatever reason.
Yeah. I hope we can plan on sitting together again.
Sure.
Michael Shannon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.